the wasted. I'm going to offshoot or go off of what I did a couple weeks ago, and that was we talked about the hand of God protecting you in the sense of protecting you from the effects of the world. It will protect you from religious attitudes or the motivations of men or the world. We also said that the hand of God fenced you in. It kept you in a spot until He was finished. He was doing a work in you, so He fenced you in, wouldn't let you run away. You couldn't run or hide. The other sense is the hand of God. You think about the hand, your hands. If you're going to do something, it takes hands to grab a hold of something, to move you along. So the hand of God here, in one sense, is the power of God. It's not enough that you say, I'm a Christian, I'm born again. You have to have the power of God in your life. The power of God is what overcomes the flesh. The power of God is what overcomes your character weaknesses. The power of God is what overcomes the human nature. You see, it says we're born again, not of incorruptible seed, but of the not of corruptible seed, but of incorruptible, and we live by that divine nature. Howbeit, you still are human, and you have that human nature in you. So what does it take? It takes the power of God in your life to overcome the human nature, overcome the weaknesses of your character flaws, the weaknesses of the human nature, and it puts you in and allows the nature of God, God's divine nature, which you're born again. You say you're born again, then it says you're a partaker, that you have been given, or you have the right, you have been given as a partaker in the sense of it's available to you. What's available to you now is God's divine nature. That's perfect love, perfect peace, perfect faith. Tell me, is God's nature not perfect? Well, then His faith is perfect, His love is perfect, His joy is perfect, His peace is perfect. Amen? It's there. It's perfect. What does it take? It takes the power of God. You say you're struggling with a weakness of your character and weakness of something in your character, or I'm struggling because my human nature is holding me down. What do you need? You need the power of God. You need the power of God to come in and influx your life, overflow, just come in like a mighty rushing power into your life to overcome the old man. Amen. To overcome the old natures and to keep you walking in that new nature. You see, the hands of God are in the sense, are when you need a push, amen. And He gives you a push. You know, if somebody needs a push, they're stuck in the mud. You get your hands, everybody gets on there and they start pushing the car. Well, that's what it is. You get stuck in the mud. You get stuck in your human nature, and you need the power of God, which is the hands of God, or the power of God, the hand of God, which is the power of God, to come in and to push you up out of that human nature, to push you out of your character flaws, your weaknesses, and push you into His strength, into His love, into His joy, into His peace. Amen? Romans 12, what is that? Romans 12:1-16 says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel of Christ." What is the gospel of Christ? It's good news. What is good news? What news do you need to hear? The good news. You're saying, well, I'm saved, I'm born again. Well, you still need to hear the good news. What is that? That you do not have to live in a defeated state. You don't have to live, your life does not have to be a lie. That you can live in the good news, amen? The gospel of Christ. Why? What is it? What is it about the gospel of Christ? What is it about this news? Well, you can watch all kinds of news on TV. Some of it will get you upset. Some of it will get you, if you're not happy with what the government's doing. Some of it will get you discouraged or defeated when you see all the trouble that people have in their lives. Or it might get you fearful to see that this old world is going down a path that's going to lead it to one world government system, Antichrist, the rule of the Antichrist and all that. And so it might get you in a fearful state. But it's not the good news. The good news says, I am free. I no longer have to live according to my human nature. I can live according to that nature, God's nature, which is available to me. And how do we get to that nature? How do we get to there? Stay in that nature. It says, for I'm not ashamed of the gospel of Christ, the good news, for it is the power of God unto your salvation. It is the power of God unto salvation. What? You mean that was just for being born again? That was just for the day that you went up in front of the church, or you got down on your knees and say, Jesus saved me. That was the beginning of the power. You must have that power every day. We must get into that power every day. It is the power of God unto salvation. It's the power of God for your deliverance. Deliverance from what? From your human nature into the divine nature of God. You want to live like Jesus? It's going to take the good news of Christ. It's going to take the power of God unto salvation. It takes power. If you're powerless, if your car doesn't have an engine, it doesn't go anywhere. Does it? If your car doesn't have a transmission, it can have all that power, but it doesn't go anywhere. Do you know that the transmission is the application of the power to the car and to the road? The transmission. If you didn't have a transmission, you got all that power. All that power is available to you, but without the transmission, the car doesn't go anywhere. What is transmission? It's an application of power. You see, you must apply this power to your life every day. It is the power of God. The good news is you don't have to live the way you've been living if you've been living in defeat. You don't have to live in hopelessness because He has all hope. Amen. And His power is there to deliver you from hopelessness into hope. His power is there to deliver you from fear into faith. His power is there to deliver you from chaos in your life to peace in your life. How many have chaos? Some days of the week are just total chaos. Well, the power of God is what delivers you, takes the chaos in your life, and gives you salvation. What is salvation? It is deliverance. It is victory. What is it? It's the power of God unto victory. How many of you want to live in victory? Have the power of God and live in victory? Amen? How many want to overcome their human nature and live in victory? It is through the power of God. It is available to every Christian. It is available to every person that walks the face of the earth. Amen? It is the power of God. The good news of Christ. Why? Because it is the power of God. Hearing the good news is the power of God. But then unto salvation. But then you need the power of God to remain. Amen? The power of God to be available every day. It says, to everyone who believes. Amen? To everyone that believeth. Another version says, to everyone who trusts. You see, you can believe that God is, but never live for Him. You can believe. A lot of people believe in God, don't they? But they never do anything with it. It says here in one translation, it says, to everyone who trusts. To me, belief put into application, or put into applying it to belief to your life, means you begin to trust God through every situation. You begin to trust Him where you're at. Amen? To deliver you from your nature into His nature. Amen? The power of God to overcome your nature. Amen? So that you may walk in His nature. So it's the application. Again, that's the transmission. Without the transmission, the car doesn't go anywhere. It has the engine. You can start that engine up. Man, you can have 460 horses, 500 horses under the engine, but without a transmission, it doesn't go anywhere. What are we saying? You have to apply it to your life in today, now, in the situation you're in. You have to apply it. How do you apply it? You choose it. Amen? You say, I'm going to take a hold of what God's purpose, the good news of Christ, the victory Christ had, the victory Christ bought for me, and I'm going to apply it. I'm going to choose it in my life. Not only that, 1 Peter 1:5 says, that they who are kept by the power of God through faith, in order that you may receive that final salvation which will be ready to be uncovered for you at the last time. It says who are kept. Well, it says who are always guarded by the power of God through faith. You see, we as Christians need to be guarded by the power of God. If you're not guarded by the power of God, you're in trouble. You must be guarded by the power of God. You must have the power of God in your life. Because that is our guard. That keeps us, amen? That guards us against our human nature getting in control of our lives instead of His divine nature. And instead of His divine will, His purpose for our lives, His way that we are to live our lives in full faith, in full joy, in full peace, amen, in full happiness. Amen? That is the power of God. It wants to keep us there, guard us, keep us in that place. Keep us from getting away from that place. 2 Peter 1:3 says, as His divine power has given to us all. How much? All things that pertain to us being overcome. To us living in defeat. No, it's given us all things that pertain to life, which is victorious life, and godliness through the knowledge of Him who called us to His glory, by His glory and virtue. All this divine power, as His divine power has given to us all things. Do you know that you have all things? But yet it's promised to you, but without His divine power working in you, you don't have anything. It's not working for you. How many want to raise their hands and say, it doesn't work for me at times? Why doesn't it work? It's not worked for me at times. Why hasn't it worked for me in the past? I sought my own power. I sought to live life under my own power. I sought to live life according to the power of my nature instead of the power of His divine nature working in me and in my life. What do you say, your divine nature? Well, you can think of everything that human nature is. Everything that human nature is. It's greedy, it's spiteful, it's unforgiving, it's hatred. It's all the opposites of the love of the fruits of the Spirit. Amen? It's discouragement. It's living in defeat. That's what human nature does to you. It puts you in defeat. You don't have the victory by living in your human nature. You have the victory by living in His, Jesus, divine nature, the nature of God. How do you get there? By the power of God. All right, let's go on down. Acts 1:4 says, Jesus said to them, He said that I will not leave you nor forsake you. Well, He did leave them. In one sense, He went up into heaven. But He said, I will send you the Comforter. And He will lead you and guide you into good news. Into all truth. That's the good news. Into all truth. The good news of the gospel. 15 minutes max on there, Sam. The good news of Christ. The good news. What is the good news? That I'm free. I don't have to live like mommy or daddy did. Or does. I don't have to live like grandpa or grandma did. Mommy and daddy can get a reputation, can't they? And it's not always a good reputation. Grandpa and grandma can get a reputation and not always be a good reputation. Well, grandpa